seconds, right? Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to this month's Talk Story. My name is Lashante Raiwalui. I am your childbirth educator. Tonight, our topic is why prenatal care is important, specifically prenatal care for our Pacific Island communities. I'm honored to be joined by Alina Martin, a childbirth educator and IBCLC. And for those who don't know what that stands for, it is International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. Sorry.
On point. You're good.
And I'll let her introduce herself.
Okay, so buenas and half a day, magandang umaga. My name is Alina Martin. So she did kind of touch a little bit. I am a childbirth educator as well as a hypnobirthing educator. I am a very proud one as well, serving my community on island and continuously serving here because we just moved from Guam to Nevada. I am also a lactation consultant working for our local advanced breastfeeding support of Las Vegas.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Before we dive into questions, I would love to hear your pronouns, what brought you to the work that you do. Just give us a little more.
Yeah, of course.
Like who and Alina.
So my pronouns are she and her. And so it was very interesting as we all are brought here, it's usually by our own experiences, and that's one of that. So it was really inspired by my kids, but moved forward through my losses. So I did experience a stillbirth in 2016. It was I was a train wreck. I mean, there's no other way for me to explain that. And through that, I had therapy. I had, a lot of healing to do. And then at the same time, because of the way I am, I thought about other mothers who were experiencing all the things I was, and who were they seeking out, and could they afford it? Like I was already teaching at that time, so I had some means of income to help me go through this therapy. So through that, I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way that I can, just connect with the community, support them in any way that I can. And this is me coming from education background. Like I had no medical background. I had no background in customers. I mean, I do, but not professionally. But really, it was an instinct that led me to want to just have this connection to support other mothers to thrive in their parenting journey, really. So I did open up a brick and mortar, where I was selling clothes, and then all of a sudden I was connecting more with the moms, and they kept coming in the store, and we were just having a conversation. I'm like, wait, I think I'm in the wrong profession here. So I reached out to a local lactation consultant, and I said, people keep coming to me for breastfeeding questions, and I'm not qualified to give them certain things. Like, what can I do? And that's where everything opened up for me. I didn't know what an IBCLC was. I didn't know that I could provide this type of care. When I dove into it, I then realized, oh my goodness, I would love to teach more about this. And then I ended up being a childbirth educator too. So somewhat of a connection with my degree, but I moved from educating in public school to educating in the parenting community. And I love it. I just stopped teaching public school in November or October. And it was a big thing for me to stop, but I love the birth work, the birth community, the connections we have. It just means a lot to me. And I always love dancing forward, rooting for my mothers and fathers and partners.
Oh, wow. That really hit, because I feel like it comes full circle. You become a parent, and then you're like, wow, how can I do this for other parents? How can I make their experience better? How can I help them learn to grow through their experiences? So I really resonate with that. Wow.
Thank you. And it's funny because I was, with my baby, I was in labor. There was 5 other women in labor at the same time. And I can hear them. They were uncomfortable. And so at the time I was in labor, I was thinking about them and trying to hold space for them and, trying to honor all the things that they're feeling, because sometimes we don't know any better. And we are pretty much influenced by, all the things we're going to talk about today. Our care.
Yes, and that is such a quotable right there. Sometimes we don't know that we need better, and that's so true. Wow. Okay, and Alina dropping gems tonight. So I'm going to move into our questions. Our first question is going to be, why is prenatal care important for our community?
So I think it's important because we just get awareness of all the things that is going to happen, because we kind of touch up on things that are happening to us in pregnancy in school, but I feel like it's so vague. Everybody's experience are so individualized. Yeah, sometimes we experience things that are in the textbook, but the way we address it, depending on like our cultural experiences and things that are passed down from generation to generation, we don't treat it that way. So prenatal care is important for our community. For one, is to understand everything that's going on, to love our body. I think that's one of the things that we kind of disconnected with, is understanding how I'm getting goosebumps, because like that's how I feel. Like we have forgotten how much power we have. And sometimes we get this in prenatal care. So, but it also depends on who your provider is. Right? We want to make sure we are with a provider who can hear us and listen to us and listen to our stories and our backgrounds and respect all the things that we hope to experience in our birth. So that's one. And then prenatal care also comes into all the things that, so I would say like special circumstances or preventive care. So the thing with that is we get to learn specifically with us. So I always like to quote my kid's pediatrician, because when he was doing like the BMI or their height and weight check, he would always be like, okay, so in the regular weight chart or growth chart, your child is a little bit under ... But in our Islander community and Filipino community, you're doing just fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we need more providers like you who understand that we don't meet that growth chart sometimes because of the different skin we are in. Like we're not in that type of studies. So yeah, again, provider is very important for that. And then preventative care, meaning we have a lot of, so for instance, on Guam, we GBS, sorry, not GBS, gestational diabetes is very common, high blood pressure, and it's a lot of our family members got it, right? And a lot of our friends get it too. And it's because of, it may be ethnicity, it may be your food, but we can collectively get the care based on this community so that we can better move forward with caring for ourselves throughout our prenatal period, right? Like, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. Like, you can't tell me to stop eating rice because I have gestational diabetes. Like, I might, okay, breathe, Edna. I might like become a momster, right? But if you can talk me into all the things that I can add into my rice or on the side dishes, then I'll probably love you, in that sense. So I know I expanded on the whole prenatal care, but ultimately it's receiving, like just hearing you with your specific type of care for your pregnancy, being educated on what's going on, possibly receiving preventative care, and getting all your questions answered. Now, one of the things I notice when I do teach childbirth education is sometimes I get this where they're like, I'm not sure if this is a stupid question, but dot, dot, dot. And I'm like, you're asking it because you have no idea. I would rather you come to me than go to Dr. Google, and you might get overwhelmed by all of the answers that you see on there. So ask away, and then we can address that. So I know it's not a specific like answer, but it's full circle.
That was
Yeah.
a great answer. As a young parent or somebody who is coming back with their second or third pregnancy, I find that because I've been both, it's like, why do I need to go to the doctor? I've done this before, or I just don't feel comfortable. Like I don't know if they're gonna perceive me the way I need to be perceived. So the way that you put it definitely settles it. It settled me. So I'm sure it's out with somebody else, and just having that broader perspective is so important.
Yes.
Our next question is, what are common assumptions your clients have made when coming into your care?
So what I love about being able to connect with people is that they're so open to what they might receive. So a lot of the assumption that they receive is, okay, I'm just going to learn. There's a list of agendas that I have, and we, as educators, we all have these agendas, right? You're going to learn about birth. You're going to learn about positions and breathing techniques. You're going to learn about what to expect when you go to the hospital setting, and maybe postpartum care with baby. But what they don't realize is that I come in there with a lot of stories, um, and a lot of kind of activities where they connect with each other. And then they're able to have these conversations to where they also reflect. Because coming into parenting, we're subconsciously, right? As much as we try to parent the way we parent, sometimes we might parent the way our parents parented us, unless we have that awareness. And so I get a lot of crying in classes because of the awareness that they realize with, okay, I'm actually going to go into this and it's something really big. So it's more than just what they expected, which is, the agendas. I give them all the things and all the stories. I give a lot of my personal stories. Like, I already asked permission from my husband. He didn't sign anything, but hopefully, like, years down the line, he's okay with me sharing all of these things. But I think ultimately they realize that um, everybody's different in their like experiences. So they might have the question is, how do I get to have a birth like her? Or how can I breastfeed as long as she did? So we're all trying to get to someone else's stories and how they were able to experience things, but then we forget, okay, we need to listen to ourselves and hone into, okay, this is the experience that I want. What might keep me from getting that experience? Could it be fear? Sometimes they don't realize like a lot of fear causes that tension, and then anxiety and fear is a real thing, especially in pregnancy and birth. So again, I know I'm a whole spiel whenever it comes to questions, but basically they just assume they're just gonna get this scripted regular like ABC agenda or 1, 2, 3 agenda. But when they do come out of it, I am so proud of them. They're more empowered. Like what I love the most about people coming out of this prenatal class is the partners, right? Whenever I come visit them postpartum or talk to them postpartum, they're always like, yeah, Edna, you know what I did? Like they were trying to tell her to push, but I said, she's not ready to push. You need to breathe. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So, there's a lot of things that I do. I wish I could like show them the way I cheer for them. I mean, I'm doing it right now, but it's different each time because from what they shared, that they wanted out of this whole experience, versus what happens, it's so empowering no matter what, because many of us will experience some sort of trauma, and sometimes it's something that we cannot control. Uh, but at the end, when the story is over, that birth story is over, and we look back at it, it's like we have a lot to celebrate. Yeah, that's all.
Man, oh my gosh. I have to take a second because
I know it's a lot. I'm sorry.
it's not a lot. It's just like it's so true. There's so much truth to what you're saying, and birth is not just point A to point B. It's everything in between. It's who you are as a person. Where do you come from? How do you
Mhm.
experience pain? And just allowing somebody that space to truly learn that and connect is so powerful. And this
Yeah,
is
and it,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
and it plays a big role in how we um, experience the fourth trimester. Huge
Whew.
role.
I have not heard a lot of like now I'm hearing a lot of fourth trimester talk, but for a long time when I had my daughter, it was like 6, 7 years ago. I didn't hear anything about fourth trimester. I had no idea.
Oh yeah,
But
me too.
now that like everyone is so becoming so aware and it's being taught more and talked about more, it's so important because shoot, I tell you that fourth trimester.
It's something. And I think the biggest thing with the fourth trimester with our community is, especially when we've moved and we're away from a lot of our family members, it plays a huge role. Like me thinking about even having another kid here, I'm like, I can't call my mother-in-law or my mom to cook for me. I can't ask my sister to drop me like marunga or moringa from her yard. I have to like try to find it in one of the stores, or I can't like go out in the ocean and just sit, play with the sand and breathe. So there's a lot of things that play a role into how we um we experience the postpartum periods from now. And I think, like, for instance, as a new mother moving in here, like, I get excited when I know somebody's from the islands. I'm like, I want to be your friend because we're going to talk about the same things. Or, I know that the way I want to do things with my kids or with, during the fourth trimester, if ever, like you get it, you understand it, you know that it needs to be I need to be like treated with, not like a princess almost. Like that's just how I visualize how we were treated around our family members at that birth space. And it's changed.
That just had me think of a whole new topic altogether. We need to get together more and talk because
Yeah,
I'll
I can talk all day.
I want to step out of the provider um, part of it and step more into the parenthood part
Sure.
because we do know you had children, you have children,
Yes.
and I want to ask you, what was your experience with providers? Oh, and did you give birth here or did you give birth on the islands?
So all my kids were born and raised on Guam, or no, they're being raised here, but they were born and raised on Guam until we moved. And well, there's only so many providers there. Am I in trouble? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm very open about all my experiences. So with my first baby, well, I should start with this. My husband and I, we have 5 kids all together, and we consider them all. 3 of them are Earthside, and we do have 2 angel babies. So our first daughter, she was a preemie baby, 33 weeks, and I did not know anything. Like I just was like, okay, we have to do that. Okay, maybe, but I don't feel comfortable. So there was like this push and shove almost where I wanted to give in because I knew they knew better, but I also felt uncomfortable deep down. And so this is again me not being an educator at that point. But thankfully, and I always talk about support in the birth setting. thankfully, my husband knew what to ask me. He told me to stop calling people. Like, he straight up like, stop calling your friends, or are you done? Like, are you done calling your family members? Like, how do you feel? I'm like, okay, this is like big question here. I want to let my body do its thing. Like, that's what I told him. And so he was like, okay, then let's do it. So with that first provider, um, it was like she was telling me standard care. She said, this is what has worked with everybody that I've helped. You really need to consider this, and or else there are risks. So at that point, I didn't know, like, okay, I was crying. I was hysterically crying. I was scared. I didn't want to lose the baby. I didn't want to make the bad decision. So with that specific provider, I didn't have a good experience. So then that followed my birth. I was screaming. Of course, I got in trouble. Now I know why, that we're not supposed to scream. But then in the postpartum periods, I kept apologizing to my daughter because I felt like it was my fault, that I should have controlled it better. But realizing it now, I should have asked for options. I should have asked for, okay, what are the risks for these things? And I should have just given myself more grace, because back to that, I didn't know any better. With the second one, I was more prepared. I had the same provider, and she actually almost didn't make my birth, which I was okay with. So, so that was that. And then moving on to the third and fourth. So the third baby, we had a stillbirth. That was an interesting experience. Again, a standardized care where he was saying, okay, this is what works best for everybody, that you should try it. But it wasn't like too much. I didn't connect. So it's as if when you going again back to the provider, it's like you're choosing, I would say, a new house or a daycare for your baby. You want to make sure that you can sit there and have a conversation like this, where you don't have to put up a block, where you know, like how you felt like, oh, do I really want them to check me today, kind of thing. Like, we don't want to feel that way. So I didn't feel very open with that provider. I didn't feel like all my questions were answered, or if he did answer, it was like more of a vague answer where I was like, okay, you know, I don't want to ask again because I feel like it was a question that it was too tedious for him to answer. And then I got educated. I connected with more parents, and I had an empowering birth experience my fifth time around. So it only took 5 pregnancies, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. So I was more empowered. I asked the questions, but it's also because I asked the right providers who respected me for who I am, who understood the anxieties that I had, and who didn't give me all the answers right away, but gave me the answer that helped me in that period, if that makes sense. So it was like a slow and steady pace where they were able to help me go through the pregnancy, to allow my anxieties to be easy. Mm-hmm. And I was just heard. I asked all the questions. They answered all my questions.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that going through your pregnancies, you said 5 pregnancies.
Yes.
2 of
5
them?
pregnancies.
3 of them are angel babies, right?
2 angel babies. Yeah.
So to be able to share that with everyone and not be at the point of, I don't know, just like uptight about it is important for everyone to hear that story, that, you know, it's not always perfect. We move on and we do better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I'm seeing here in the chat, there were a few questions that popped up. Let's see. What do you do when you get morning sickness?
Okay.
Yeah.
I love, that's a very good question. It's open for me, so I hope you could still see me. So this is a very important question, because depending on our bodies and the way we experience things, we may experience morning sickness or we may not. But when you do experience morning sickness, you need to acknowledge your body, because there are ways that we can help, ease it and prevent it from happening. But sometimes we just gotta understand that this is a period in time where we have to allow our body the rest that it needs, and that it's only temporary. So if you do get morning sickness, we usually say to try to stay away from oily foods. So that would consider fast food, sorry. So go more into like small and spacing out your foods as well. So a lot of small snacks like crackers or toast. And then if we do it in the Pacific Islander kind, a lot of coconut water helps a lot, especially if you're not in the mood to eat. And if you can drink down some coconut water, then that helps with your electrolytes and just giving your body some nourishment. But I can go on, and this is specifically for whatever you're experiencing and what it is that you're craving for and what makes you feel sick is also very important to understand. So maybe you walk into a room and, like, for instance, I had a mom who did not, like, she would throw up if she smelled like a steak that was frying. So understanding what it might be specifically that is affecting you helps a lot, but also just acknowledge it and rest. I know it's hard for me to say this, and I don't take it lightly, but allow yourself to rest.
That's true. Rest is so important during pregnancy. When you got tired and felt stress, what do you do? Do you go to supportive groups to get help?
Yeah, so growing up, I have always kept my feelings in. That's for another story of growing up as a Pacific Islander and an Asian. But when when I do get tired and I feel the stress, sometimes it's hard for us to, again, going back to acknowledgement, that we do need a break. And I think it takes a lot of practice. So this is something that I've practiced in 2021, and it took the whole year, and I'm still practicing it at this point, is when is it time for me to pause or stop? When is it time for me to let go of certain things? Or when is it time for me to seek the help that I deserve, right? And that could be any means: a provider, a therapist, yoga instructor. If you do crystals, maybe that. If you need to go back to what you were used to growing up, maybe that too, right? So anything that can help you feel less tense. So I guess the best way to explain that feeling would be if you were to close your eyes. Imagine yourself where you feel safe and secure and at peace. Bring yourself to that visualization, actually. So let's say we're all here. Like, I can't go back to the water or the coconuts anytime soon. So I always close my eyes, and I can feel myself floating. So visualizing and meditating is a lot, but also knowing when to stop and pause and take a break is very helpful. And you're not going to be perfect at it. You probably won't be able to say it the first or second time, but the more you practice, the more you'll be able to treat yourself with that self-love that it deserves to. And I do go to supportive groups. I especially go to groups where it's not non-judgmental. I look specifically in the comments, and if a specific mom likes to call out this other mom, then I'm out of that group. So I'm very careful, and I specifically choose the groups where I can feel heard and I won't feel judged for whatever I do say.
That's a good tip.
Thank you.
Let's see. I know we took a little detour, but I did have another question about the kind of care. So what kind of care did you search for during your pregnancy?
So, um, I it's because I only know of it. It was just OBGYN. Oh, and then prenatal massages. I didn't realize that there was more into the supporting the pregnant community, which is maternal mental health, maybe physical therapy that is specialized in pregnancy, chiropractic care with providers who specialize in pregnancy and who understand. Yeah, I didn't know all of that stuff. But see, that's the thing. When I was pregnant, the care that I did search for was just a provider, and then uh, a massage, prenatal massage.
On the topic of care that you did search for, or I heard you saying that there was a bunch of care that you didn't even know was available. What kinds of care, if you could, well, not even if you could, moving forward into your pregnancies, what kind of care did you search for? What did you find helpful?
So, I found okay, second opinions, I guess, would be the best one for me to answer. So with my fifth pregnancy, because I had high anxiety, my providers at that time respected the fact that I wanted to get second opinions with everything that's going on with that. So I ended up getting care in the Philippines, just to try to see if the way they see things were different from the way, I think it was more for peace of mind. But I really respected and loved the fact that my providers beforehand was very supportive of my decision, because they knew what was going on in my brain, in my mind, with all the stress and anxiety that's going on, and that it may or may not have helped, but they were going to support me in that sense to get that second opinion. So I was able to meet another OB who specializes in high risk, and then I was able to seek some therapy over there as well, because I was able to afford it there more so than on island. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to anyone hesitant or neglecting prenatal care?
See, that's the hard part, because prenatal care is, I mean, do you see it as someone where you have to see a provider or like an OBGYN, or prenatal care as in you're going to see like a midwife or somebody who is able to come to your home? What, so, I mean, in the, I'm very careful with my words, but growing up, we're so used to like, okay, we got to get these appointments every month and see how baby's doing, see how you're doing, answer any questions. But in reality, it's almost as if each time it's like, okay, I'm going to give the power over there and then just try to see what they think is going on with me. But sometimes we need to like hold on, close our eyes and see what we are feeling. So check-ins are great depending on how you feel, but it also depends on the type of care that you are searching for, because the different scopes are very different. So there's like a physician-led care, midwifery-led care, and then midwifery home-based care. So there's really no answer to that, but rather when you're saying you're trying to avoid it, which one are you trying to avoid? Is it the physician based care? And why are you trying to avoid it? Is it because you're not connecting with the physician? Then go find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Because you want to be comfortable the whole time. Like, you don't want to be at your birth and it's going to be that same physician you're trying to avoid the entire time. You're going to be tense in your birthing experience. And the more tense you are, the more that you can feel everything that's going on, where we actually would rather you relax and just let your body do its thing.
That's so true. Intense. Oh, look, we have some more comments. When should you go to the doctor for prenatal care?
So, I think, if you want to find out what kind of care that you can receive, call around right away. And then when you do call or you do have an appointment with somebody, don't feel like you have to stick with them the entire pregnancy. So I'm always going to go back to, do you feel heard? Do you feel respected? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you can trust this provider? Right. So it's different for everybody. Like, so if you want to move cares, just ask, how can I move under your care? Right? What do you need from me? Type of thing. Yeah. So going prenatal care as soon as you can, learn all the things, and then, if you need to move, then you have the right to.
Yes, it's so important because you do have the right to switch providers, any type of care.
Yeah.
As an islander, I grew up knowing a lot of women in my town never consider visiting doctors. Why is prenatal so important to expecting moms?
So that actually goes back to I think it was the first question we had. It's awareness, learning more about you, understanding what to expect. I think it's just a matter of like you kind of just understanding what's going on with you. Like we want this to be a beautiful like journey and not a journey where you're fearing. And I think I'm probably going to say this. I think prenatal care is so important because we have a lot of resources online that we might get trapped under. So if we are able to receive that prenatal care, we can ask the questions, we can, get um get the not treatment because we're not sick when we're pregnant, get the care that we deserve during that time so that we can understand. Pretty much a lot of it goes to your knowledge and understanding and making sure that you have an experience where you're well taken care of. Because again, preventative. So even if everything's going okay in pregnancy, something might pop up, and how can we address that? Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to work together to do this and this and this. Yeah.
I also think it's important to highlight in this question. I noticed a very specific language was as an islander and then in your town visiting doctors. So there was a comment that I did notice in the chat that said that midwifery is a little bit more of intimate care. And
I agree.
I do too.
Can I say that? Can I say that there? I love you, midwives. Like, I'm
Yes.
so glad you're coming back. Keep coming back.
Especially coming from, I was not born on the islands. I have never lived there. But in my studying and becoming a childbirth educator and dealing with midwives, I've learned that midwifery is very close to how my ancestors, yes, how home is. Like you want somebody who can feel like your auntie who lives right down the street.
Yes. Yes.
Like your mom who will be right there next to you with the fan in her hand and
yes.
holding your hand and stuff. Like that is what midwifery care is. And I think that sometimes here in our towns and our cities, it's kind of intimidating to want to be like, okay, let me walk into this hospital. There's so many doctors, all this stuff that stuff that will overcloud the experience of being
that you hope for. Yeah. No, that's right. And like not to get too much into it, like my fifth child, midwife was there to help me birth my baby. So it wasn't the other way around. He didn't deliver my baby. So he came into the room. He almost missed it. Male midwife, by the way. He came into the room. His hands were up. He's like, okay, whenever you're ready. And I was like, what? Like, I mean, a male person, a midwife, he's letting me do my thing. So like that just changed the whole aura of it. I felt like I was glowing.
Yeah.
Like he gave me that power to be able to do the thing that I wanted to do. So if I were to do it again, I'm gonna go with the midwives. Even if they probably might deny me if I'm high risk. Maybe in my history, I wouldn't I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say it in my history.
So true. It's so true. Because I have to get caught back up to where my questions are on the list. What can the father or partner do to make the pregnancy easier and smoother?
That is a very good question. Take classes. I can't, right now, I can't give you tidbits, but because of all the things that we are able to share with you through the classes, not only do we want to help empower the mother, but we want to empower the partners too, so that they can better support their birthing partner. And the thing is, we can search and search and search online, but a lot of the resources are like how to have an easier birth, or how can you get through birthing without any blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing that's catered to our birthing partners. But a big thing of that is, and I always talk about this, is the love language of the birthing person. How can we respect her at birth, respecting her love language too? So that's something the partners need to understand and need to hear. But also, when do we have hands on, or when do I know when to have hands off? Because we can, as birthing people, we can plan how we want birth, but we may not want to be touched, or we want to be encouraged. It's different, and we want to provide the partners all the tools so they can be oh, she's calling me. I need to put some pressure on her hips. Yeah, I know what to do. So we want them to go in there like that. Because, I've had it to where with multiples, I sorry, dads, or partners, always the first time around before classes, it's yeah, he was scared. I was worried for him, and he didn't know what to do, versus taking a class, understanding and knowing what to expect, and when to know when to sit down. So PS, this is something I always share. If a nurse or the provider or a midwife or the doula tells you to have a seat, just take it, because it probably looks like you're about to pass out. But I don't think that's very common at home settings. But really just understanding everything that's going on, so that you're okay, that's happening. Here's what I can do. Okay, this is what we talked about. I get to cut the cord. Or this is what we talked about. I need to look at her straight in the eye and reassure her that she is just going to be okay. Whether it's holding hand, doing some light touch massages, caressing her hair, or maybe just standing there and just being praising her to the side. So classes.
And classes and learning to incorporate the love language.
Yes, big thing.
I love that. Okay. Ooh. Can you still request a doula during your third trimester? Actually, before you answer that, give me 1 second.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're good. I love this question, and I'm gonna say absolutely. Your doula would probably, ooh, did she go away? Oh, there you are. Okay. I thought you paused. You're just very still when you're plugging in your.
I was focusing.
But gosh, I wish people knew more about doulas too. I have the utmost respect for doulas, and I hope that the answer is yes. I don't have the direct answer to that, but I'm just going to assume that the doula is just going to get as much information as they can from you, see what you see in birth, and then go from there. I never had a doula in my births because I didn't know that I could. But I don't know, do you have and I know this is my interview, but I want to learn too.
I know that I'm a part of a very big awesome network of BIPOC doulas that do offer third trimester services. And yeah, if you need a doula, go get you a doula, because there's nothing more amazing for a person in that position to be like, I can offer you support. If you need it, like a week before, I mean, hopefully you don't wait till a week before. Like, let's not wait till you need somebody there. There are plenty of birth workers, not just women, and who can relate to every spectrum of who you are as a person, where you come from culturally, to offer you that support. So never hesitate. If you need you, girl, go get you a birthing person, go get you a doula.
That is like the best answer ever.
Do you know any ways to prevent or control diabetes during pregnancy?
Honestly, I'm going to talk to you as a mother too. I have tried all the ways in preventing high blood sugar, but unfortunately, it's also passed down genetically. So it's really a matter of how can we take a look at all the things that we're eating at this point, because sometimes GD is only during pregnancy. And at the same time, it just helps us kind of go and check into what it is that we're eating and how can we incorporate things to just eat a little bit better. And most of the time, it's like fibers. So, for instance, I had gestational diabetes. I don't know if it was, I mean, the numbers always change, like the cutoff line, but for sure my line was like over, or my test was over for this past pregnancy. And so even if I'm logging down my foods, so let's say that I have a good 3 days of good foods, I still can have high blood sugar, and I'm stressing out over it because it's like, oh my gosh, here I am trying. Or even if I have like cereal for dinner because I was craving it so bad, or Ichiban, for instance, and then the following morning, like I have good blood sugars, and my mind is like, what in the world is, like, I'm done. Like, I really wanted to throw the papers. So as far as preventing it, it's difficult for me to say. But as far as helping you throughout, if you do end up having gestational diabetes, is just being more aware of what makes it high. And if you're like me, love yourself. So I'm not like the best person to ask that because my numbers were crazy. And as much as we tried, I had to also take the medications.
Love yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely. Always give grace.
Yeah. In the beginning, I was so stressed out because I was so focused on a number. Like, I wanted to make sure I was in a specific number every time. But is it really the food, or was it the stress that I was feeling that was influencing my blood sugars? Or, it was hard to say. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always reflecting.
Yeah. But that's it's a very important question because I love to honor all these questions, but when it comes down to it, let's look at our ancestors. Like, I'm going to use that often now. And how did they do it? How did they, help with it? And, what can we control? Let's address that. And whatever we cannot control, let's find ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Alina, for being here and showing up as your full self. We all have things going on in our days. We have our professions, but just to have you here and feel the essence of who you are and why you do what you do has been a treat. I've enjoyed you so much.
Yeah, girl, invite me for anything birth and breast, and I'm there.
Look, you're there already on the calendar. So before we go, if you want to just share how you can be reached, I think the community would really enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am more active on Instagram. So it is at the Birth Tribe, TheBirthTribe. And when you get there, there's links to all my website and how to contact me and things like that. So I think that's like the easiest way to get in contact with me.
Awesome. Let me just look through the comments and see if we have any more. Oh, look, we got the shout outs going. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be in contact.
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to share before we go, we have a few minutes.
No, I think that this is a perfect time because we have like 10 minutes. It's usually an hour for us to hold space for each and every one of us. This is usually what I do at the end of my private birth classes. And then I get called out because, there's a lot of tears that happen. But it's acknowledgement and acceptance. So if you're watching, or even if you're watching later, take this time to put your hand over your heart. I want you to close your eyes and let's just focus on today. I want you to focus on something that you can celebrate today, no matter how small. Going somewhere on time, cooking dinner on time, maybe smiling or spending time with your kids a little bit longer than you used to. Celebrate anything that you want to today. And I want you to take a deep breath as you acknowledge that feeling. And then I want you to talk to yourself. Give yourself grace and give yourself love for being able to go through all the things you did today. And take a deep breath and acknowledge that. Okay. That's a nice short one for us. I feel good already.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I needed to do that. I'm so hard on myself throughout the day, so yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for inviting me here. I look forward to future conversations.
As do we. Have a good night, everyone, and we will see you next month.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.